What is up, New York Giants fans? How we feeling? A great performance by our Giants. What a game. It was incredible. We absolutely smacked the hell out. Oh, wait a minute. I just woke up. I bet. Yeah. So welcome to the second episode of Giants Collective. Of course, I am Bad Dog. We have Anthony from Fireside Giants, Adriana from New York Giants Fangirl, everything New York Giants on YouTube. And of course, Chris the Entertainer talking sports. What's up, guys? How was your week? Was it great?
Yeah, well,
you guys all look so happy.
It got better after Sunday. Yeah.
So, really not much to say as far as an intro goes. Say hello to a couple of people in the chat. Dire Giants fan, legend, Mackie Thomas, Torius HAN, Justin. What's going on, guys? Danny, Year 6 Duds, one of my favorites. It's a very prophetic name. We'll get into that tonight as well. Boldstein, what's going on? So this time around, towards the end of the stream, we're going to start doing taking questions like the last 10 or 15 minutes, just so you guys know. We didn't do it the first episode, but we're going to do it tonight and going forward. We appreciate you tuning in. Without further ado, I want to get your thoughts on that disgraceful performance. If you even want to call it disgraceful, it might be too nice of a word for what the Giants put forth in that field on Sunday. Lady first, as always, Adriana, give us your thoughts. Don't hold back either. Don't hold back. Colorful language allowed. This is the Eagles we're talking about. So have at it.
Okay, so obviously, like everyone, I was concerned about Andrew Thomas, right? I think we talked about this. We're all worried about Andrew Thomas. No one likes Joshua Ezeudu at left tackle, but I'm trying my best to be the slightest bit optimistic that maybe when Daboll's been bullshitting us week in and week out, that Joshua Ezeudu has gotten better because Carmen Brasillo has done whatever magic trick he's done to help this offensive line. He did it on Ezeudu too. And then we go into the game, and then the game is the game. And I just was horrified by all of it because I thought that it was going to be a better matchup on paper. And what we've seen from the Eagles and what we've seen from the Giants, they're relatively on par when it comes to the way that they've played week after week this season. So I thought, it's probably going to be a close game. Maybe it's going to come down to a field goal, but I felt like if the Giants play like the way that they've played in some of these games this year, that they'd be able to pull it out. And when it was 14-0, I just knew it was over. I knew that was going to be the end of it. When the end of the third quarter hit and 50% of the stadium of Giants fans got up and left, I was like, I'm right there with you guys. This is it. It's over for us. We suck. Not only do we suck, now we're going to hear forever about the Saquon thing that's never going to end because, there's busted coverage and Tay Banks doesn't give a fuck about playing football. And, the offensive line, everyone decided that they were going to have the worst day of their life in the one game that really mattered. It gave us the opportunity to go 1-2 in the division. Like I said, we could have matched up well enough with them, and they just fucking blew it. They blew it in every opportunity that they got. Couldn't score a touchdown. They finally get a touchdown to Theo Johnson and the OPI. And when that happened, I was like, it's over. It's done. I'm embarrassed. It's pathetic. It's probably one of the worst home losses that I've seen since the Cowboys loss. The Minnesota one was bad. This one was worse, I think.
Well, it's in division, yeah. So
division rival, so much talk going into this game. And I just, at no point did I think that it was going to be as bad as it was. And I actually was glad that I was at the game only because I didn't have to see Sirianni's stupid face on the sideline. That's like the best thing came out of that game. I mean, I was lucky I got to experience it in a suite, so that was also great. But I'm like, thank God at least I didn't have to see Sirianni, because I really would have lost my fucking mind if I had to see him on the screen every 5 seconds doing the stupid shit that he does.
Yeah. The only magic trick we saw was a disappearing act by the Giants offensive line in this game. That was pretty amazing. Anthony, again, don't hold back, brother. Let him have it. What did you think about the game? What disgusted you the most? If not all of it, what disgusted you the most?
What disgusted me the most actually came after the game. It was Brian Daboll saying that Daniel Jones still gives this team the best chance to win football games. I wholeheartedly disagree with that comment. I think it's ridiculous. I'm really tired of that narrative. I think that we've seen enough evidence that this guy does not give us the best chance to win football games. If this is our best chance of winning football games and we're putting up 3 points at home Sunday afternoon, I think you got your answer. He is not the best chance to give us a winning football. And we saw it last year. We saw Tommy DeVito step in and win football games. We saw Drew Lock on primetime against the Eagles last year for the Seattle Seahawks win a football game. So how do we watch this demolition against our division rival, the Eagles, and we still feel like Daniel Jones gives us the best chance to win football games? I was joyed when they finally decided to bench him. I can't understand why they're going to go back to him next week. I think that we've all just about had it. I think we all are ready for a change. Even if you're looking past just what we're seeing on the football field, just look at what's happening in the stadiums, all throughout the fan base. Daniel Jones is just the most divisive player, and he's like actually ruining what we used to have in this community. Like, we used to be Giants family. Now we're all divided. Everybody's arguing. Everybody's fighting. Everybody's leaving games. I'm just sick of it, man. Like, we need a change. We're not getting one. I can't believe that Brian Daboll is still here selling us this horse shit. He's not the best quarterback on this roster, in my opinion. Maybe he is. I don't know, but I just don't want to watch him play football anymore. That's just where I'm at.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Chris, how many
you
got in your arsenal? Because I'm pulling them out.
I mean, I think you could at least make an argument he's the best quarterback, but the fact that that's even a discussion when you have Tommy DeVito is the alternative, because Drew Lock didn't look good at all. That tells you all you need to know about Daniel Jones. I think the writing's on the wall that we don't have a quarterback on this roster that gives us the best chance to win. That's the problem with this football team, and he's going to need to be replaced by year's end, if not before that. It is what it is at this point. I feel like it's a lost season. I think the biggest argument to bench Jones at this point, more than anything else, is the injury clause, and I think that's what Giants fans are more afraid of than anything else. Is they look at what the Broncos did with Russell Wilson last year. I don't remember what week it happened, but it might have been midway through the season. They saw that it was a lost year. They didn't want to risk the added risk of having to be further obligated to pay him more money, so they decided to sit him. And I think the writing's on the wall with Daniel Jones. If this team continues to do with what I think they're going to do the next couple of weeks, the way that they looked, the way Daniel Jones looked, the way Josh Azudu looked, the way the offensive line looked, the way the defense looked, I don't think they're going to win very many games over the next 3 weeks. And I think maybe they'll beat Carolina, but I don't think they're beating Washington, and they're probably not beating the Steelers. So at that point, you're looking at what, a 3-win team after the bye? I think at that point, you're going to bench Daniel Jones. I think it's a matter of when, not if. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I hate seeing that. You want your quarterback to do well, but he's not it. He's not the guy. I want Daboll to come back. I want to preface before I say what I'm going to say. I want Daboll to come back. I want Shane to come back. I don't want to have to go through another head coach, another GM regime. I don't want to have to flip all this all over again. But it's getting harder and harder to defend these guys week after week. It is. It's getting harder and harder. When you see Brian Daboll go up on the podium after the game, I'm not even going to talk about the Daniel Jones commentary. The fact that he once again goes up and says, well, we were outcoached. Well, we were outplayed and we were outcoached. You tell that to me every week. So if you're getting outcoached every week, Daboll, what's the incentive to keep you here next year? So it's getting harder and harder to defend these guys. As much as I do want to see Daboll and Shane back next year, I want to see them be able to carry out their plan. It's been a disaster here these last 3 or 4 weeks. It's been an absolute disaster. And like Adriana said, the encouraging thing going into this week was the team was competitive against some pretty good football teams. So at least you gave yourself a little bit of hope going into this game. I had my doubts with Ezeudu starting on the left side. I thought that could have been catastrophic, but you had some hope that it would have been a somewhat competitive football game, and it was just an absolute disaster. And I think Giants fans at this point, their hands are up in the air. They don't know what to do at this point. I think we're all used to this in recent history, but I think we're talking draft now, which is sad to say.
Yep. That was an absolute bloodbath. And as many people know me, know I fucking hate the Eagle. I cannot stand anything about that. That goes back to Buddy Ryan days. I'm old, okay? I was there when Buddy Ryan was a head coach, or putting bounties on Lawrence Taylor and playing dirty and doing dirty shit. I hated him back then, and my hate has just grown over 40 years. And I can just tell you this, man. The Saquon Barkley thing made it absolutely worse. The fact that he went off and rubbed salt in the wound. Open wound, just dumped a pile of salt. And it's a lot of salt that Giants fans had towards Saquon Barkley, including myself, which obviously I was pissed off they went to Philadelphia, not that he left the Giants. I understand why he left the Giants. I don't blame him for getting his money and, going somewhere else where he had a chance to win. I don't blame him at all. But to come back to our stadium and just, kick our ass the way he did, just run up and down the way he did with no resistance after the first quarter. It was embarrassing. We started off okay. Everything that I said in this the pregame, and I did this with my buddy Lord Brunson, we talked about the Eagles-Giants game. I said, if the Giants can stop Barkley and you put Hurts in third and long, our defense will get there. And they did in the first quarter. They sacked him 3 times. They were all over his ass. But as soon as they started running the ball, that was it. Then Jalen Hurts was having time. Jalen Hurts didn't even have a great game, but he didn't have to. The Eagles have always done this to us, where they run the ball down our throat, where they beat us at the line of scrimmage. And to Adriana's point, I thought it'd be more competitive because I felt like both of our lines of scrimmage are better. But it's looked like the old Giants against the old Eagles. They run the ball down our throat. They just trounce us. They steamroll us. And then defensively, we can't get any pressure. They just dominate the line of scrimmage. They're running the ball all over us. And it's disgusting, man. I had a hard time watching it. I became void of all emotion. Obviously, that came back. Otherwise, I wouldn't be so pissed off. But like Chris said, I've had it with this whole organization. And to Anthony's point, I can't watch Daniel Jones anymore. I've given him every opportunity to the point where people are like, you're a Daniel Jones defender, bad dog. You're a Daniel Jones. One guy told me I've been defending him since his first interception. I said, you must have been one of the 10 million people that didn't see my draft reaction when we took him. I was pissed then. I'm pissed now. He was a Giant. He is a Giant. So obviously I'm going to root for him. When he does good things, I'm going to say, hey, look at this. Look at this. But he was not going to fool me this time when he had a good game in Seattle. We've seen it a million times. He's inconsistent. He's a one-read quarterback. Malik Nabers telling people, hey, I'm open. Daniel Jones locks on one guy, and that's it. Can't come off him. Can't process the play. Can't get a pre-snap read. Can't read the defense pre-snap. He sucks. Yeah. He sucks. No more defending him. No more watching him. I can't do this for a 7.
The other thing that I as you're talking, and I agree with everything you're saying.
I talking or yelling there. I'm Italian.
The other thing that I wanted to mention, and Daniel Jones sucks. Daniel Jones needs to be replaced. He's the biggest storyline of this game from a Giants perspective. Saquon Barkley is the biggest storyline from an Eagles perspective because he ran all over his team. But the other thing that I didn't like in this game, for the second straight week, especially when you have Josh Ezeudu on the left side, the Giants 2 weeks ago ran the ball 4 times with their running backs in the first half. This week they run the ball 3 times in the first half with their running backs. What are you doing? I don't understand the play calling by Daboll these last 2 weeks. I just don't understand it.
Not only that, you're going against 2 of the worst run defenses in the league. Why is that not your game plan? I just don't understand. And I'm with you, Chris, too. I don't want to start all over. I believe that Daboll is a good coach, and I don't think the grass is always greener. I think we've seen good things from Daboll. Think we've seen some not some good things from Daboll, but I ultimately think if he drafted his own quarterback, he would have success here. Correct. But his decisions are maddening. And when 2 weeks in a row, you're going against bad run defenses, why are you coming out throwing the ball when you have a quarterback who can't throw the ball past 10 yards?
Yeah, our longest play was 14 yards, right? 14 yards. And against Cincinnati, it was 14 yards.
Yes.
That's insane. Anthony, I want to ask you this, and we'll go around. We'll go Anthony, Chris, Adriana this time. Do you think that Brian Daboll is a bad play caller, or do you think that Daniel Jones limits Brian Daboll as to what he can do as a play caller?
I think Daniel Jones limits everything he wants to do as a play caller, but I also think he has a similar problem to Daniel Jones in the fact that he's inconsistent, because we do see games where Brian Daboll looks like Brian Daboll from the Buffalo Bills, and then we see games where Brian Daboll looks like Mike Kafka from the New York Giants. So it's hard to differentiate what the real problem is on a down-to-down basis for this team. And I mean, the point about the running attack in this game is the best point to make. Like, why are we not running the football? Why are we trying to drop Daniel Jones back with that offensive line, Andrew Thomas out of lineup? That just doesn't make sense. And to Chris's point about him saying that he was outcoached, the worst part about Brian Daboll sitting in those post-game press conferences and saying that he got outcoached is that every time he says it, he's right. That's the worst part. It's not like he's just saying, oh, I was outcoached, and he's just trying to take the blame away from somebody. He truly is being outcoached. He's actually correct in his assessment, not just trying to take the blame away from somebody else.
He's trying to take heat away off the players.
Exactly. He's not protecting anybody. He's being honest, and he's correct in his assessment. That's the worst part about it. So I like Brian Daboll. I agree. I think we all agree he should still be here next year rather. But on a week-to-week basis, we just don't know what we're getting with him, whether it be the decision not to bring up a kicker against the Commanders, whether it be the decision not to run the ball against the Eagles. Like, there's always something that he does that just makes you scratch your head. Kicking on third down, right? He kicked a field goal on third down this week when we totally could have taken a shot at the end zone at the end of the first half. Like, there's just always these random moments that don't add up. And it's like, I know that on his coaching staff, if you go on the website, he has guys in place, these little game manager type positions on the sideline that are supposed to prevent him from making these mistakes. And then it kind of makes you think, all right, well, last year we heard about how he ran all these meetings, took over other coaches' meetings, and didn't listen to any of their feedback. So you just add it all together, and it makes you think that sometimes his head is just not in the game, and he's just too emotional. And to his point, or to his credit, rather, in the offseason, he said that he was going to have less temper tantrums on the sideline. I think he's done a good job of that. He's kept his temper in check for the most part. But even still, he's making just mistakes, just brain fart mistakes. And there's no explanation as to why they keep happening. But at the end of the day, he is getting outcoached almost on a week-to-week basis. His great performances are few and far between, just like Daniel Jones. So, while Daniel Jones is the biggest problem with this offense, there are other problems. And Brian Daboll is not exonerated from any of these problems.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm throwing the temper tantrums for him. Don't worry. I got that under control. Chris, go ahead.
I don't want to come out too strong against Daboll because, like you said, Anthony, and like I said earlier, I want him back. I want stability with this organization. But at the end of the day, quarterback aside, we all know Daniel Jones sucks. We all know the New York Giants need to replace the quarterback by year's end. That's obvious. I look around. I look at the coach we're going up against this week. I look at Mike Tomlin. Every single year, that guy has that team over 500. It doesn't matter who's that quarterback. He's got Mason Rudolph at quarterback one year. They win 9-10 games every single year. Brian Daboll's team doesn't look prepared. Brian Daboll's team is being outcoached. So I think it is very fair at this junction this year to be critical of Brian Daboll. I do not like overall the job he's done as a head coach with the New York Giants. Do I think there's been some good? Absolutely. I think his play calling actually weeks 2 to 4 or 5 overall was good. I think he did a good job with the play calling, but there are certain things he's done from within these games. And like I said, the lack of running the football in the first half these last 2 weeks, some of his planning just doesn't add up to me. The kicker was a huge thing. Like Anthony said, week 2, got to be fair. He has not done a good job so far this year.
Adriana, what do you think?
I agree 100% with what you guys said. And the Joshua Ezeudu thing is one of the things that really drives me up a wall with him, because I don't understand the forcing the square peg into the round hole. And again, it's like when you're supposed to be this offensive minded genius, and I understand that he's not working with the best roster in the league. I get it. But if Daniel Jones is so much of an issue, which he obviously is, and we have 2 other quarterbacks on the roster, make a change at this point. It's going to save your job. If you can get him to throw a touchdown pass at home, you're immediately in a better place. Whether it's DeVito or Locke, no one cares. Just give one of them a shot. And again, put your players in a position to succeed. Them forcing Ezeudu, who is a guard, to be a left tackle is not putting him in a position to succeed. They can only do so much with Daniel Jones. I get that. And I don't know if Mara is saying to him, we're paying him $40 million a year. You have to play him until the bye or whatever. I don't know what the problem is there. I don't know why. I'm like kind of agree that maybe he gives us the best chance to win. But then again, after the last 6 weeks, I'm like, I don't know how you could look at that.
Let's put it this way. If he does, it's not by much. And that's a major problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, like they're all, to me, they're all kind of the same caliber quarterback. But I like what Anthony says, like we've seen enough of Jones at this point. Like he's not all of a sudden going to be better, regardless of what happens with the offensive line. He wasn't that much better with Andrew Thomas in against the Bengals. So, it's just so frustrating. And I get really pissed that I feel like Daboll makes the same mistakes over and over again. And he's so stubborn about it, where I'm like, where are his advisors saying to him, like, enough is enough with Ezeudu? He very clearly is not a tackle. You signed Chris Hubbard, start him at left tackle. Is Evan Neal, like, I just have a really hard time believing that Evan Neal is that much worse than Ezeudu at left tackle. I don't believe that. I just don't believe it. I know that he's been getting right tackle snaps. Move his ass to left tackle. Just try it.
Yeah,
then what?
That's my biggest issue too. Is you can't use that as a built-in excuse with Evan Neal. Like I could get
left tackle in Alabama. Give him a shot. He was
good at it.
I can at least get a small argument if the argument was, well, we don't want to move him from the right side because that's where we projected he's going to grow into. Jermaine Illuminor is staying with his football team. The way that he's playing, you're keeping him. So you can't use that excuse. He's not your future right tackle because Jermaine Illuminor is. So play him on the left side. We all know Josh Ezeudu was not projected to be a tackle at the NFL level. He was drafted to be a guard with some tackle versatility based on his build, but he doesn't belong there. Evan Neal was drafted to play that position. I'm done with Ezeudu. I've seen enough of Ezeudu. Let Evan Neal see if he could grow under what we thought was an improved offensive line coach.
And why do you make Neal the swing tackle? Why does Ezeudu have to be the swing tackle? A guy who's literally never played tackle until he got here. And we saw almost a full year out of him, and it was god-awful. And I know they have a new coach. The guy's not a magician, okay? He's not turning him into a rabbit. Like, you have to, at this point, enough is enough. You got to
block like a rabbit.
And move Ezeudu. Move Neal to left tackle. He's actually played the position before. I just can't understand why they can't give him reps at both sides.
Yeah, I don't either. You saw Ezeudu immediately in that game getting beat. Immediately. Yes. Like, it wasn't like, he had a couple of like immediately. It's like the Eagles saw that and attacked it. They like, that's a weakness. Go at it right away. And they did, and they made it look bad. And then the whole line collapsed because obviously left tackle is supposed to be your anchor. And to you guys' point, I don't understand why they don't try Evan Neal. He can't be worse. You did draft him, and he did play tackle. He did play left tackle. He played left tackle well. This is why he was a top 10 pick. There must be some kind of talent there. And if he ends up being good at left tackle, well, then maybe you have your swing tackle at that point. Maybe you trade him. Who the hell knows? To Anthony's point, Anthony, I think you made a great point about Brian Daboll. I agree, and I never thought about it before. His play calling is inconsistent. And to you guys' point, why the hell don't we run the ball? Especially last week when you saw Ezeudu get crushed. And this is after Tyrone Tracy comes off a game where he had 18 carries for 129 yards. Thinking, look at this kid. He got, we have a kid that can actually play at the NFL level and even started this week over Devin Singletary. I didn't even know Devin Singletary was active because they started Tyrone Tracy. I was actually surprised. But how do you only run him combined 7 times in the last 2 games of the
first 7 or 8 first half carries? That's insane.
It doesn't make sense. And Daniel Jones has more carries than the running backs. Make it make sense, Brian Daboll. And yes, to your point, I don't want him going anywhere. I still think Brian Daboll can be a good coach. I just wonder how much, if there is any animosity, if he really just doesn't feels like he can't win with Daniel Jones and really doesn't care and says, I don't want to say he's tanking because, we don't use that word, but sometimes I look at the things they do. I'm like, I wonder if he's just like, you know what? We didn't lose enough games last year and we missed out on Jaden Daniels and Drake May. And I don't want to lose out on Cameron Ward. Cameron Ward, please. I don't ask you for much. Cameron Ward, anybody?
But I feel like Mara would never be on board with that. And maybe based on the way that everything went last year with the draft and the way that Mara is seeing the way that Jaden Daniels and Drake May are playing, maybe he could say like, I'm going to sit this one out. I get it. Like we're in it for the long run here. But I worry that if that's the case, and listen, at least have the team competitive enough and ready to play that you lose games by a field goal. Fine. I think we would all be happy to see a competitive football team that loses every game by a field goal or 2 points. Then you say, okay, we get our quarterback, but at least we're not watching the worst fucking football team.
That's how I felt after the Cowboys game. Obviously, I wasn't happy with the loss, and I said we played a C game. That's probably a game we actually should have won. But I said to myself, okay, we have competent coaching because they kept us in that game. We didn't play our best game, and we still could have won. So I actually left that with a good taste in my mouth. There's some encouraging things the last couple of weeks. I think the secondary overall, if you look at it from a 3-week window, has actually played really well, considering the wide receiving groups that they've gone up against. Excusing Deonte Banks' play this past week. But it's just I'm so down on this team after last week, just for all the things that we're talking about. I hate being as negative as I am, but it's hard to talk about this team right now. It just is.
Yeah, I always like when people are like, oh, you're negative. They say it to me all the time, and I'm like, what do you want me to be positive about, man? This team has won like 20 games in the last 6 years. Obviously, they've won more than that, maybe 30 games in the last 6 years. I mean, what do you want? What are we supposed to be positive about? You're watching your team get their brains beat in, week out. We have scored 1 touchdown at home this whole year. 1. And that 1 touchdown, we had to convert, 3 4th downs on that drive just to get into the damn end zone? You tell me losing to the Eagles 28-3 and watching Saquon come back and run for 177 yards and 3 quarters on your ass, getting beat by Minnesota 28-6 and scoring 7 points against one of the worst defenses in the league. You tell me what you're supposed to be positive about. I look at good things, yes, when Andrew Thomas there, offensive line's playing better. The pass rush is legit. If there's one thing about the Giants we can say,
Dexter Lawrence, defensive player of the year.
Yeah. Dexter Lawrence is amazing. But if you're working with a team, say you're working with a team of people and you have deadlines and you're working your ass off, and the person next to you is slacking and you're not getting it done and you're still taking the blame for it, there's going to be a point where you're like, well, you know what? It doesn't matter how hard I work. We're not going to get it done. So why am I going to work hard? And I'm not saying the defense does that, but at the end of the day, you're human. And when you know, well, no matter what we do, this offense ain't going to score. And if we give up a touchdown, it's going to be over. So no matter how hard we play, we're not going to win anyway. They might have a tendency to let up at some point, like here we go again, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, interception, fumble, 3 and out. How much you can't ask the defense for much, that much. I mean, every week we're putting it on the D. Oh, here we go again. Gotta hope the defense holds again. Here we go again. Gotta hope the defense holds again. I can't blame those guys, but I love the pass rush. I think it's amazing. I think these guys play. The secondary is way better than I thought it would be. The Drew Phillips. I think every Giants fan loves Drew Phillips. Tyler Newman's been really good. Cordell Flott's been good when he's been out there. I think that's been a pleasant surprise. That side of the ball, I think, is good. But this offensive side of the football, I don't know if it's just Daniel Jones, but, man, it seems like
he's a big part of it. He's the quarterback.
A fresh start, man. You just need some kind of rejuvenation, and I think it starts there.
And I think Giants fans also look at our neighbor. They look at the Washington Commanders, and they say, well, there's a team that was floundering offensively. All of a sudden, they get a quarterback, and now they're one of the best offenses in the league. So I think that's a part of it, too. I mean, obviously, 6 years of Daniel Jones is enough to do it to you. But they look at Washington and just they snap their fingers. They get a rookie quarterback. Suddenly, this is a team that's in not just playoff contention, maybe deep playoff contention, the way that they've looked in recent weeks. So I think that has something to do with it, too.
Speaking of Brian
Daboll, with their backup quarterback in.
Yeah, it's true. Marcus Mariota, yeah.
I think that highlighted coaching but more than anything. Cliff Kingsbury as the OC over in Washington versus with Brian Daboll and his inconsistencies as a play caller. I think that's the perfect way to highlight it. Even though I guess to that point, last year when the backup quarterbacks went in, this offense looked better. So I don't know. Maybe it just is the quarterback holding the team back. That's like a logical conclusion to draw.
Yeah, it's definitely part of it. That's at the very least, he's part of it.
Let me ask you guys this. Chris, will start with you this time. 2022 is Brian Daboll's first year here. I'm pretty sure all of us, none of us, well, I shouldn't say none of us. I certainly didn't think the Giants were a playoff team. I didn't know what to expect. They did pick up the 5th-year option on Jones. He had been a lousy quarterback. He was coming off a neck injury. There was no way they were going to do it. They were probably looking at getting their own guy. They didn't tag him. They probably thought they were going to have a bad year. Most Giants fans probably thought they were going to have a bad year. Didn't expect much.
I did.
They go 9-7-1. You did. They go 9. I'm just saying most.
I thought we were gonna have a bad year. I agree.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said you were saying they were gonna have a good year.
No, I thought we were gonna stay.
We go 9-7-1. Daniel Jones probably plays the best football he's played over the course of a year, like consistently his whole career. He stays healthy. We win a playoff game in Minnesota where he looks phenomenal.
Great.
In that,
He
looked like, holy shit, maybe he can play. Maybe it was just the coaching. And then it explodes. What is the difference between Daboll in 2022 and Daboll in 2024, in your opinion?
I mean, I think, and this is just from a fan's perspective, I'm not in the locker room. I don't claim to have head coaching credentials. Obviously, Daboll knows a lot more about football than any of us, or you better know a lot more about football than any of us. But I think the biggest thing that I take out of that season and the last two was, well, one, of course, having Andrew Thomas helps. So, like last year when Andrew Thomas went down, it was a disaster. And we saw what happened last week, too. So I want to preface it by saying that. But the other thing I'll say with the team in 2022, they had an identity. Every week, you knew what that team was going to do. They were going to go out there. They were going to try to run as much clock as they possibly could to preserve the defense down the stretch and win the time of possession. That team was able to have long, sustaining drives because they were able to grind it out. 3-yard gain, 4-yard gain, 5. They were able to grind out the clock. And that was the formula that gave that team the best chance to win. Last year, the Giants tried to open it up a bit, understandably so. You went out, you paid your quarterback that amount of money. You got Darren Waller. Second year in the offense, you convinced yourself, okay, Daniel Jones finally has some stability. I believe in my play calling ability. Let's open up this offense and see where they could go. Disaster. And obviously, like I said, the Thomas injury having something to do with that, but disaster. And the team has not gotten back to an identity. When I watch this, what's the identity? Early on this year, I said, okay, well, you got Malik Nabers. I guess that's your identity. A big play threat, a guy that could break a big play here or there. They're going to force feed him through the offense. But they haven't established it. 1 week you say, okay, Tyrone Tracy, they run for 129 yards. Okay, but that year, 2022, every week you would say to yourself, they're going to run the ball 30 times. They're going to win the time of possession. They're going to be good on third down. And that was it. They did the small things well, and that's why a team with a limited talent was able to maximize as many wins as possible.
Adriana, what do you think the difference is between first-year Daboll and third-year Daboll in the play calling?
I think similar to that, he also was more aggressive. And I don't know what the reason is behind that, but it started with week 1 where he goes for the 2-point conversion to beat the Titans. They get the 2-point conversion, game's over. They lose or they win on the missed field goal too. And then I just feel like whatever it was, that aggressiveness, he took that consistently through the rest of the season. And I feel like with the play calling, with the running the ball, it was consistent week in and week out. Like Chris said, you knew what they were going to do. Then I think between last year and this year, now that he's taking over play calling, now he feels like it's all in his hands. I think he's afraid to be aggressive because he doesn't trust Daniel to make the throws, doesn't trust the receivers to make the catches or to make a play. And I don't know what the deal is with not running the ball. Like I can't figure out for the life of me why that's not part of his game plan. But I just think that he's trying to make the offense like more complicated or more creative because that's what he was known to do. But when he simplified it and made it easy for DJ and for this offense, it all worked. So I don't know why all of a sudden now he's got to take it and do all these creative things. But remember, in 2022, he wasn't calling the plays. So maybe it just was a difference between Kafka's play calling and Daboll. And maybe that's just a part of it, is that whatever Kafka was calling, he was going the simple route. He knew this was all DJ could handle, and he did what he did. And now Daboll said, I'm supposed to be this offensive guy. I don't know. Maybe he just feels like there's too much pressure on him and he has to be creative, even though this offense is not creative. But
yeah, I'm thinking back to the 2022 year also. The other thing that offense was exceptional at. Now, they weren't good 20-20. They didn't move the ball well 20-20 as much as many teams because they didn't have many red zone opportunities. But when they got there, they cashed in. They were I think they were 4th in the entire league in red zone efficiency that year in terms of scoring touchdowns. And some of that does, I think, go to the play calling. I'm sure Daboll had something to do with it. But yeah, they were much better in the red zone that year. They were able to catch. And Barkley has to be mentioned, of course. He was huge, especially in the first half that year. And he had a lot to do probably with the success in the red zone as well.
Anthony, what do you think the biggest difference is between rookie Daboll and 2024 Daboll?
Yeah, I think a lot of that success in the red zone also is related to the fact that the Giants were very good at keeping their turnovers down. Obviously, Saquon Barkley, one of his calling cards is the fact that he rarely fumbles the football. He's very good at protecting it. And that season, Daniel Jones had the 1.1% interception rate, which we all made a big deal about because that was a tremendous number for him. It was the lowest in the NFL, and we were really impressed by that. But I think after that season, the Giants thought, because like you were saying, Chris, their identity, they had a very clear identity. And to me, it was keep the football clean, win the turnover battle, right? Because with that Wink Martindale defense, you force a lot of turnovers. And with the way that they were running that offense last year, or that year, the rookie year for Daboll, they weren't turning the ball over. And that was the reason that they were winning a lot of those football games. And then last season, we saw a little bit more turnovers on both sides of the ball. They led the league in takeaways, but they also turned the ball over more on the offensive side. This year, they've done a good job of keeping the turnovers down, but to what extent? How have they handicapped this offense in an effort to keep the turnovers down is what I kind of feel like is happening, because this team doesn't take shots. They're not aggressive anymore. And it almost feels like they're just too afraid to turn the ball over, which is why I said something similar recently this week. I said, I kind of miss watching Giants quarterbacks throw interceptions, right? Like we all celebrated when Daniel Jones had that 1.1% interception rate because we were like, wow, he finally turned the corner. He doesn't turn the ball over anymore, but he also doesn't take chances anymore. He used to throw the ball downfield. I remember that rookie season. I was there at Tampa Bay in his first start when he threw that deep ball, when he was rolling left and threw right to Slayton. I was like, man, I haven't seen Eli Manning throw that pass in a few years. Maybe this is the right decision. Let's move on. Let's go with Daniel Jones. I'm here. I'm buying in now. We haven't seen that, though, in years. Like, we haven't seen him take those chances and be aggressive like that, get out of the pocket, and make wow throws. Now he likes to lock into that first read, check it down, and just be as conservative as possible. Only take those deep shots when they're wide open and they're built into a play design. Doesn't get off script to throw those deep passes. And it all feels like, to me, it's an effort to limit turnovers as much as they can. And because that's been their number one mission, and it worked for them that 2022 season, they went to the playoffs by limiting their turnovers. But in 2023 and now 2024, that mission to limit the turnovers as much as they can is actually what's holding back this offense. That fear of turning the ball over is killing this offense. Just throw it into a tight window, take a chance. I remember Eli Manning. This is my favorite example. Against the Seattle Seahawks, I think we all remember this play. He just chucked that thing up into double coverage. The two guys in coverage, Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor, of all people, against the prime Legion of Boom. Eli Manning said, fuck it. Just threw that thing down there. It tips up. Who catches it? Victor Cruz, one hand, 75 yards to the house.
Anthony.
Eli Manning did that shit, and yeah, he threw a lot of picks, but he also threw a lot of touchdowns.
It's funny
Daniel Jones doesn't throw touchdowns because he doesn't throw picks.
It's funny you say that, Anthony. I used to say that to my friends all the time when I'd watch the Giants games at bars, because as a fantasy owner, but you would watch all the teams. Of course, you'd focus on the Giants, but every week when the Giants would be down 3 scores with a minute and a half left, you would look around the league. You would see other quarterbacks would be padding their stats. Check down, 5 yards, 5 yards, 5. Let me just get that last minute touchdown. Eli Manning, the one thing that I loved about him more so than almost anything, the guy didn't give a shit about his stats. The team would be down 3 scores with a minute and a half left, and he said the only chance this team has to try to win this game, I have to throw Hail Marys basically down the field. He didn't care about his stats. And to your point about Daniel Jones, yeah, I do think it's a little bit in his head as well. And the coaching staff said he's gotten to the point. Now, to be fair, in 2022, I do think that was the best chance for that team to win. But the difference is the fact that they were able to limit turnovers is what helped them win. But the major difference is, Anthony, that team was able to have long, sustaining drives. You think back to that season, they must have had 7, 8, 9, 8 or 10, 9-minute drives that year. And those are game killers for the opposition. This team hasn't been able to do that. And that to me is a major difference as well. If you're going to play that style of football, you have to be able to control the clock.
Yeah, the thing is with like Anthony said, to me, I watched Daniel Jones play. The 4-yard pass is like rocket science of this team. It's amazing. There's so many low reward, high risk throws. It's like a 4-yard stick into double coverage. What the hell? You're not, even if you complete that, what are you actually accomplishing? Daniel Jones can't improvise at all. He can't. But like Anthony said, the first game, Chris, you and I streamed it. Daniel Jones turned the ball over. Well, he threw 2 picks. He might have even fumbled once, but he made plays. It was insane. Like, it's like, oh my God, this guy just makes plays. This is why I like Cameron Ward so much. Cameron Ward is a guy that'll turn the ball over. He does. He takes some risks. However, he makes plays. And Eli was the same. The gunslinger. I'll take a gunslinger. I'll take a guy that throws 37 touchdowns and 17 interceptions all day over a guy that gives me 13 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. I don't want that guy, because that guy at the end of the day is not making any plays. And that's why he's so frustrating to watch. I don't know if he's scared. I don't know if he don't want to turn them over. And the other thing is, when there has been guys that have been wide open, he's missing them, and he's missing them badly. So I don't know what it is about Daniel Jones. I'll say this. They definitely set him up to fail. I mean, they were not ready to take a quarterback, and they should not have taken him. His team around him many years has sucked. The line was garbage. The line has been garbage. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. The year went to the postseason. The number one receiver was Richie James and Darius Slayton and Marcus Johnson. And these are the guys he was throwing to when we were winning football games with that squad. But at the same time, you expect your quarterback to improve year in and year out. You expect him to get better. And we're in year 6, and Daniel Jones is only going to be Daniel Jones. This is exactly what he is. He's a guy that will have a good game, and you're surprised, and you think, oh, maybe he figured something out. Maybe he got his confidence. Maybe he's going to start playing. And inevitably, he comes back, and he has back-to-back games where we score a total of 10 fucking points and get absolutely embarrassed offensively against 2 defenses that are not very good. So I understand Giants fans.
True, bad dog. The Giants failed Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones failed the Giants.
Right. 2 things can be true here.
Both can be true, and both are true.
Guys, you have some slightly breaking news. So John Mara is at the premiere of The Duke, the Giant Life of Wellington Mara premiere. And this is a quote from him that Jordan Renan just tweeted. "We are not making any changes during and after the season." He talked about trying to be patient. They're committed to seeing the process through.
Right.
So it's now.
When you say three, I'm assuming he's talking about Daboll and Schoen, correct?
And Schoen, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the caveat there is that if Daboll loses the locker room, he's going to get fired. But I do think that this is probably not a surprise to us, where we all just agreed that we want to see Daboll and probably Schoen too for at least one more year. But
I want 2. If I'm being honest, I want 2, because I think they want to draft a quarterback. And if they draft a quarterback, I want them to get 2 years with that quarterback. Mm-hmm. So ideally, I want them to get 2 more years, if I'm being honest. But go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's fair. No, it's okay. So the only other thing that I was going to say is that to me, that's the only caveat, I think, at this point. If Daboll loses the locker room because the defense is working hard and keeping the team in games, and the offense can't score points, and he has to sit down with Malik Nabers and Dexter Lawrence and say, we're trying to win games. Like, I'm sorry that we can't get you the ball, and that the defense, is doing the best that they can. And I'm sorry that my offense literally sucks ass. I think that's the only way that at this point he probably gets fired. But I also think that Daboll has to be honest and say to a Dexter Lawrence and a Malik Nabers, like, we're going to give Jones 1 more week. And maybe he is, for all I know. We obviously don't know the conversations that we're having, but I think that Daboll, to save everyone, needs to be like, I'm going to give them, if he's sticking with Azudu, they get 1 more week. And if they can't figure it out, we're done, because we're going to do whatever we can on offense to help you guys out, because I know that you specifically are literally working your ass off and having a defensive player of the year that's going to get wasted because we can't score a touchdown. And that's my fault, because I'm the offensive coach.
Talking about Malik Nabers, Jen, I'll start with you this time. Obviously, Malik Nabers came out and pretty much said, I'm open. What do you take out of that? Yeah, I'm open. Now, I'll say this before we get into this. Anybody that watched Hard Knocks, Brian Daboll asked him this question. What are you going to do if you're open and you're not getting the ball? He's going to say, well, I'm going to say something. I want the ball. And Brian Daboll said, good. I like that answer. So is this a non-story, or should the rookie not be throwing his quarterback under the bus, even though everybody with eyes can see that he is wide open and that Daniel Jones isn't throwing him the ball?
Yeah. I think because naturally, I think everybody's going to compare it to Odell with Eli Manning because that was a big thing with him. I think this is a completely different scenario. With Eli Manning, you were talking about a living legend. You were talking about a guy that had credentials, 2 Super Bowl rings, a guy that had a lot to do with Odell Beckham's success early in his career, where he had the greatest start ever by a wide receiver in his first 3 years. Some of that has to be credited to Eli Manning. That's a completely different scenario than this. This is a quarterback that Giants fans were booing 3 plays into the start of the regular season. This is a guy that it is clearly obvious if he's not the full problem, which I don't think he is. I think there's other aspects of it. He's a big part of the problem. And I think everybody has accepted that at this point. So I think it's apples and oranges. I don't hate Malik Nabers for saying that because I think he's probably right.
Yeah.
Adriana, what do you think about that?
I agree. I think he's probably right. And when I, went back and watched some of the tape and saw, the problem is some of the plays that I saw is he was open, but Jones was on the ground. And then, the Drew Lock plays, he was also open when Drew Lock was the quarterback. So I am sure that it is bothering him. He also did have 8 targets. So I don't know. And, prior to his concussion, he was 50% of the passing game. So the only thing I worry about is that the locker room is going to implode. I am worried that when this starts, it's going to continue, right? You've got Tay Banks who's taking plays off in the middle of the game. And then after the game, you've got Malik Nabers saying that. So I just worry that the locker room might start to get a little fractured. And I think it's going to be really hard to come back from that.
It's amazing how losing does this to teams, because when we were winning, I heard Wink Martindale last year said, well, we're talking about this because we're 4-8. We didn't talk about this last year. We were 6-1. Right. So, Anthony, what's your take on Malik Nabers saying, I'm here. Hello. I'm open.
I mean, he was open. I think he was open. I think he should have gotten the ball more. And, a lot of people interpreted it as him throwing the quarterback under the bus, but I don't necessarily think that's the case because the blame it goes around. The offensive line didn't do their job. Daniel Jones was on the ground a lot. The play calling was also bad. I think that's part of it. We are very quick because we're all upset with Daniel Jones and the way that he's played. We're very quick to be like, that's who he's singling out. I don't really think that's the case. I think he was just kind of highlighting, I did my job. I was open. It just didn't go according to plan. And that's 100% true. That is a fair assessment of what happened.
He didn't even mention Daniel Jones in the statement. There's other variables that come into play. You're right.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into play. Also, credit to the Eagles defense. They played him well. But if you really watch the game, there were some plays where, and this kind of ties into what we were saying earlier, the defense might take plays off. And it's very obvious when you see Deonte Banks not make a tackle. But there's also players on offense who take plays off when they know that they're not moving the ball and they have no chance of winning the game. And honestly, I saw that a couple times with Malik Nabers. I think that towards the end of the game, he wasn't going full steam in his routes. And it's because he was the second, third, or fourth read on a play. And that also highlights one of the problems when he's saying, I'm open, but I'm not getting the ball, but I am open. Well, he's open as the third read, and he knows that they're not going to get to the third read, either because of the offensive line or because Daniel Jones just doesn't go through his progressions like that. So there were many factors preventing him from getting the ball, even though he was open. So I don't think that he was necessarily calling out Daniel Jones. I think that he was just highlighting a problem, and we all see the problem. So I don't think that there's much of a reason to be upset with him for highlighting it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, he is open. But again, when you're losing football team, this type of stuff happens. And then, of course, playing in New York, things are magnified. Like when they talked about Malik Nabers going to the concert last week, and now Tay Banks taking off plays. Malik Nabers, things get magnified. If the Giants were, 5-2 right now, and this stuff was happening, nobody would care that Malik Nabers is saying I'm open, and then he might not be saying I'm open if they were 5-2. It might not have mattered at all. And they will start to do this time really quick. What do you think, Daniel? Obviously, I don't think a player is ever going to say, I can't do it. But Daniel Jones came out and said, I still think I can win football games. Right? Do you actually think he believes that, or do you think he's just saying that because he's supposed to?
I think Daniel Jones always just says what he thinks he's supposed to say. And this is one of the things that really frustrates me. I posted something on Twitter today because somebody commented on one of the Fireside Giants Instagram comment sections and said Daniel Jones and Eli Manning are the same quarterback. There's just a different level of talent around them. Anybody that thinks that doesn't know what they're watching. Like, I can't understand how people make that argument. And there were people that agreed with this comment. So I just don't know how people watch football, how they watch Daniel Jones and how they watch Eli Manning. And I'm going to take it a step further, even off of the field. Everybody, when Daniel Jones got here, said, oh, he's just like Eli. He behaves the same way. Not really. Eli was funny. Eli was the locker room prankster. Eli had the sauce, man. He had a personality. He was great with the media, but not in the always say the company line way, in the I'm going to make a personal connection with the media way. I don't think Daniel Jones is nearly close to being that level of a character that Eli Manning is. I'm not calling Daniel Jones his character into question. He's a good guy, great guy, does a lot in the community, all that stuff.
Hard
true.
worker.
Boom. Yeah, hard worker, first one in, last one out. But that doesn't matter if you're not winning football games. You can be the hardest worker in the world, but if you're just not good, you're just not good. And so I just can't stand those comparisons. So I think that Daniel Jones, back to the original question, is always just saying what he's supposed to say. He's not sitting there like honestly having a conversation with any of these reporters. Whenever I hear him speak, it's always just scripted lines, and it frustrates the shit out of me. I think Brian Daboll does it too, and it always frustrates me. Why does everything need to be kept behind closed doors? Why can't you just give us an opinion on something once in a lifetime? Please give us a window into this organization so that we can have some faith that you are trying to turn things around. Goes for Brian Daboll, goes for Daniel Jones. I'm tired of the company lines, the scripted responses. Have a personality, please. And to your point, Bad Dog, I know you'll like to hear me say this. That's why I like Cam Ward. That's why I like all of these young rookie quarterbacks coming out, because they do have personality and they are trying to make a name for themselves on the field, off the field, and have great moments with reporters. Daniel Jones just always wants to say exactly what he's supposed to say, and I'm tired of it, man. Speak your mind. Actually say how you're feeling. If you think the team sucks, like Joe Burrow said a few weeks ago, say that you think the team sucks. Maybe that'll spark the team to play better and beat you at home on primetime like it did for the Bengals and Joe Burrow. So that's where I'm at with it. I need some more personality from this football team, and it actually ties back into what Chris was saying. There's just no identity.
Right. Well, I'd say this. I always use a really bad film as a quote, Rocky V. I always use this when Rocky's teaching Tommy Gunn how to fight, and his wife tells him, you can give him everything but your heart. You can give him everything but your heart. Eli and Daniel Jones are the same size, 6'5", 230, both very quiet, but Eli led on the field. Daniel Jones does not lead on the field. He's not a leader. He's not a vocal guy. Eli wasn't a vocal guy, but he led by example. Daniel Jones doesn't do that. And yeah, the coaching tree, the Manning, all this stuff. He looks like him. All this stuff, but he's not him. He doesn't have his heart. He doesn't have his brain. He can't pray. He doesn't do what Eli does. So you can look at two guys and go, wow, they may look the same. They may talk the same. They may act the same, but they're not the same. And
they're not even close. Anybody that watched those two play that thinks they're close is out of their mind. Eli, man, we talk about the it factor sometimes with these quarterbacks. The personality thing is what it is. I personally don't care if you're winning football games. I don't care. I remember when people said that about Eli Manning too. The all shucks attitude. He can't win. He won. People shut up about it real fast. At the end of the day, if you're winning games, I don't care how you are off the field. It doesn't matter. Doesn't how you act in press conferences. The bottom line is Eli Manning had the quote unquote it factor, right? We talk about that all the time when we look at franchise quarterbacks. Whenever Eli had the ball, second year on, because his first year was awful, even though he had a game-winning drive to finish that year, he was awful. One of the worst rookie years in the history of the NFL. His second year on, supporting cast or not, every time that guy had the ball, you thought you had a chance. I think back to the Philadelphia Eagles game, his second year. We're down 14 points or 17 points or whatever it was going into the fourth quarter. Eli Manning brings him back. And that I remember watching that game with my brother and sister, and I turned to them, I said, we got a franchise quarterback. I knew it right then, year two. I knew it. Never got that feeling with Daniel Jones. Eli Manning gave it to you almost right away. He had the it factor. Eli Manning, you felt like when you had the ball, even if you were down 2 scores with 10 minutes to go, you had a chance to win. With Daniel Jones, if you have a 10-point lead with 10 minutes to go, you're hoping he doesn't mess the game up. They're not even close. They're not even close as quarterbacks. It's a silly comparison.
Great call. Adriana, your thoughts on Daniel Jones saying, I can still do it. I have the sauce, pretty much.
That's exactly what I expected him to say. Like Anthony said, like he says what the media wants to hear. I honestly think that he's just afraid to show his personality because he feels like it's going to be one more thing that the media and the fans can talk shit about him about. I genuinely just think with him, it's that simple. He's like, everyone already hates me. I can do no right, so I'm not going to show a little bit of myself. Or maybe honestly, he is just that boring. Like maybe he is. But then you see him on stage at a concert drinking a beer and singing, and I'm like, maybe Daniel Jones is fun. Like you see him at a bar playing flip cup. Like I think there is a personality deep down, but I think he's genuinely afraid to show it. He's like, literally everyone hates me. If I make a joke or if I say I'm not good enough, then I'm admitting that I know I'm not good enough. And then, everyone's going to tell me
it's almost as you're talking, Adriana, it's almost like the pressure of Eli has him trying to play the part of Eli from an off the field standpoint. Like he's trying to be picture perfect. People used to say that all the time about Eli. They would say he's like Derek Jeter. He's great off the field. He handles the New York pressure well. It's almost like the shoes that Eli left. It's forcing Daniel Jones to be something that he's not.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's exactly why Dave Gettleman drafted him, especially drafted him at 6. It was like blinders. This guy could be Eli 2.0, and that's it. That was all he needed to see, and the rest is history.
Yeah, all I saw was red when we drafted him. I had an out of body experience when that came into the microphone. I don't know that I've ever been. Well, I came pretty close to getting that mad the other night when Anthony Rizzo booted 2 balls, and I thought the Yankees were going to freaking lose. I lost my mind. I haven't been that mad since we drafted Daniel Jones. But to you guys' point, I agree. I don't know that there's maybe he needs to play flip cup before the game. Maybe he needs to just throw back a couple and loosen the hell up. And I don't know. You guys talk about it, and you're right. He seems very guarded. He wants to see all the right things. Maybe he should just throw caution to the wind and say, I don't give a fuck.
He's
just go out and play. What's that?
Yeah. At this point, he's got nothing to lose. He's not going to be a Giant next year. That if I were him, that's what I would do. I don't think he has it in him.
He's got nothing
he's not gonna, but it's year 6. He's not going to do it at this point. He would have done it already.
Why? I don't get it. Just go out and throw it. Who gives a shit? Yeah. Again, I'm older, so I remember these days. But 1986, and I tell this one a lot too. Bill Sims struggled in 1986 for a long time. He was not a good quarterback. He threw more interceptions than touchdowns last year. That year, the offense really struggled. The defense was legendary. I mean, we had 3 Hall of Fame linebackers. Carl Banks should be in the damn Hall of Fame. Let's be honest. Harry Carson's in there. Lawrence Taylor's greatest defensive player to ever play the game. So you had you had Leonard Marshall, who to me is the most underrated Giant ever. He had 83.5 sacks. He was a beast. That defense was amazing. And before the Vikings game, Bill Parcells said, Sims, go out there and throw the ball. I don't care if you throw 4 interceptions. Just make some plays. And Sims threw for over 300 yards, and the Giants won, and Sims got hot, and then the rest is history. I wish Brian Daboll would just go up to Daniel Jones and go, kid, listen. We might have our differences. We're not playing good football. Just go out there. I don't want you to think about shit. Just play football. Just play. If you throw an interception, so what? Take some chances. I don't care what happens. We have nothing to lose. We're in this together. Just go out there and throw the football. Play like you did the first week you played in the NFL, where you just went out there and played, because I swear he just went on instinct. He just played. He wasn't thinking. I think Daniel Jones thinks too much when he's back there. And when you think, it's too late in the NFL. So
I think Daboll said that this summer, though. Like he made such a point to be like, we're going to throw down the field. And now that we have Nabers and this is what Jones is working on, blah, 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 blah. And I feel like that was the plan going into this season. And then the Minnesota game happened and they threw those interceptions, one of them being the pick 6. And then I think as soon as that happened, he was like, I'm all in my head now. I can't throw the ball anymore because I can't throw touchdowns. I can only throw interceptions.
Well, he threw a touchdown. It was just to the wrong team. I mean, that counts, right? I mean, we've seen that a few times. I mean, he has thrown a touchdown at MetLife this year. That if you think about it, just to be in Ginkgo, but I mean, it is what it is. On that note, we have reached an hour. So sorry we didn't get to the chat. So I'm going to say this, chat, leave some questions in the comment section of this video. And maybe when we start next week we'll get to some of your questions because the hour flies by. It
Especially
really
you got
does.
4 people. We're passionate. We're talking. We love the team.
So, I mean, listen, guys, I'm enjoying this show. I hope the people in the chat are enjoying it as well. So if you do, like it, subscribe, check out every one of these great content creators channels, because obviously you see they know what they're talking about. They're passionate as well. And that's why I love doing the show. It's been a lot of fun. So with that note, guys, we're going to get out of here. And hopefully next week we're talking about a better result. I guess I don't even know if we want a better result. I really don't know what the hell we want at this point. I'm confused, much like Daniel Jones. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your night. We are out. Peace.